The rain had started just as my cab pulled up to the entrance.
Typical, right?
I stood there on the curb, damp suitcase in hand, watching the bellhop rush to help a couple in designer coats, completely ignoring me. This was Henderson Grand, my parents' flagship hotel. Gold-lettered signs, crystal chandeliers visible through the glass doors. The whole place looked like it had been dipped in money and polished with pride. And yet, I didn't belong. Not to them. Not anymore. I stepped inside, dragging my bag behind me. The red carpet soaked up the water from my shoes as I approached the front desk. My jeans were wrinkled. My hoodie had a coffee stain. I looked like a traveler who'd missed her flight, not the kind of guest this place normally showcased in its brochures. "Hi," I said with a tired smile. "I need a room for the night. My connection out of the city got canceled." The receptionist barely looked up. Her name tag read Elise. She forced a smile. "Of course. May I see your ID?" I handed it over. As she typed, her eyes flickered to the screen, then to me, then back to the screen again. Something changed. Her posture stiffened. She picked up the phone, voice low. "Yes, she's here." No explanation. Just silence. Then she hung up. "I'm sorry," she said tightly. "We're fully booked." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? Your app says you have availability."
She didn't respond.
Instead, two security guards walked out from the hall near the elevators. My stomach dropped. "Elise," I said slowly. "What's going on?" Before she could answer, a voice cut through the air like a knife. Of course she showed up. I turned. My mother stood there in a pearl-studded coat, arms crossed, lips tight. Next to her, my father looked furious, like someone had just spilled wine on his legacy. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. "My flight was canceled," I said. "I figured I'd stay the night, just one night." My mother scoffed. "You figured wrong. You're turning me away?" I asked, stunned. "I'm your daughter." "No," Dad said. "You were our daughter. Until you decided hotel consulting was more important than helping run the family business." Mom chimed in, voice sharp. "You chose to be a stranger. So don't expect family privileges when it's convenient." I looked around. Guests were watching now. A man with a suitcase paused mid-check-in. A woman near the elevators lowered her phone and stared. "I wasn't asking for privileges," I said quietly. "Just a place to sleep." "And cause more embarrassment?" Mom hissed. "No, not tonight." Then she nodded at the security guards. One of them stepped forward, picked up my suitcase, and rolled it toward the exit. The other gestured at the door. "Ma'am, I'll need to escort you outside." My throat went dry. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I turned to my parents one last time. "Is this really what you want?" I asked. My father stepped closer, his voice like ice. "You're not family anymore." I stared at him. At the face of the man who once carried me on his shoulders, who taught me how to tie my shoes in the lobby of this very hotel. I didn't argue. I just whispered, "No, I'm not." A pause. Then I looked him in the eye and said, "I'm something else now." The Airbnb was small, quiet, and smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. I dropped my suitcase by the wall and sank into the edge of the bed, still hearing my father's words on repeat. "You're not family anymore." That line didn't sting the way I expected it to, because deep down, I already knew. I'd stopped being their daughter the moment I chose my own path. A path they never respected, never asked about, and certainly never believed in. I opened my laptop and waited for the Wi-Fi to connect. As the screen lit up, so did the world they refused to see. My world. The dashboards came alive. Real-time data from hotel branches across Europe, Asia, and North America. Occupancy rates, satisfaction scores, executive notes, renovation progress. My eyes scanned across charts and reports like second nature. Because this was my empire. Not that they'd ever cared to ask. To them, I was just the consulting kid who didn't stay in her lane, the daughter who refused to follow their outdated blueprint, the one who questioned tradition, challenged their routines, and dared to think differently. 3 years ago, I came to them with a full modernization plan. Smart rooms, AI-powered service personalization, sustainable architecture, integrated virtual concierge tech. I spent months building it. Nights without sleep. Drafting reports, running projections, testing prototypes. And what did they do? My father skimmed the first page and said, "We're not a tech company. We're a family business." My mother laughed and told me I'd be better off fixing hotels that don't belong to us.
So I did.
They said no. I built elsewhere. Through shell companies, silent partners, and a growing international network, I started buying. First, I helped restructure failing boutique hotels. Then I started acquiring them. Quietly.
Carefully.
And when I realized how many of Henderson Hotel's suppliers, partners, and land leases were vulnerable, I took those too.
I didn't do it out of spite.
At least, not at first. I just wanted to prove I could. But today, sitting here in a dim rental with my suitcase still zipped, I wasn't just proving anything. I was preparing to finish it. Because they hadn't just turned their backs on me. They'd thrown me out, publicly, cruelly, like I was nothing more than an embarrassment in faded jeans.
And that
unlocked something. I opened my secure folder. The stock acquisition files were already halfway complete. The final push was scheduled for next week, right during their biggest event of the year, the Henderson Awards Gala. Perfect timing. That night, they'd be handing my brother, yes, Tom, the golden boy, an award for innovation in hospitality because he decided to change the room's service menu font. I smiled. Meanwhile, I'd been integrating multilingual voice AI systems across 5 continents, partnering with fashion brands for in-suite luxury experiences, rescuing failing properties, and making them profitable in months. They thought I was small, but they never noticed how much of their empire I already owned. Because I didn't wear it on my sleeve. I wore it on my spreadsheets. And soon they'd see. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted recognition. And they made it clear, polite presentations, family loyalty, and dinner table pleas were never going to earn it. But this would. I closed the laptop, reached for my phone, and opened a voice memo. "Michael," I said to my assistant, "move up the final acquisition timeline. I'm attending the gala. As a guest. And as their boss." A pause. Let's make sure every screen in that ballroom knows who really runs Henderson Hotels. My office sits on the 47th floor of a high-rise downtown. It doesn't have a nameplate outside. No big logos. Just frosted glass, quiet lighting, and a view that stretches for miles. That's how I like it. Low profile. High power. The morning after they threw me out of their hotel, I sat at my desk in silence, staring at the city below. Then I opened the Sullivan dashboard. Each tile on the screen represented a property we owned or managed. Boutique hotels in Paris, smart resorts in Seoul, beach villas in Costa Rica. My empire. Born from rejection. Built from silence. And now, ready to expand again. "Michael," I said, tapping the earpiece. "Yes, Miss Sullivan?" "Walk me through the final steps." He entered the room holding a sleek tablet, suit pressed, face calm. "We currently control 48.7% of Henderson Hotels through our shell acquisitions," he said. "By end of day Friday, we'll cross the 51% threshold." I nodded. "And the vote?" "The board meeting is scheduled for Monday morning, but once we hit 51%, you'll have full control, legally and publicly." I leaned back, letting it settle in. 3 years ago, I would have begged them to listen. Now I was buying the seat they refused to offer me. Michael continued. "We've also secured full partnerships with their 3 highest-grossing suppliers. If your family checks their ledgers closely, they'll realize they're already working for us." I chuckled. "They never check the ledgers, Michael. They just count the coins. We spent the next hour finalizing the PR plan, internal restructuring documents, and rebranding assets. Every folder was labeled Project Phoenix. The name wasn't random, because that's what this was. A burn. A fall.
A rise.
I remembered the night I created it. It was after my mom called my consulting firm a hobby. After my dad told me to stop playing business and get a real job. That night, I didn't cry. I started planning. The Sullivan Protocol began with 3 principles. Stay invisible until it's too late to stop. Buy power quietly and release it loudly. Never beg for a seat at the table. Build your own table. And now, the table was set. The timing was perfect. The Henderson Awards Gala was a week away, and the guest list had just hit my inbox. Gold leaf invitations. Celebrity presenters. Family excellence themes printed on every banner. And right at the top of the schedule, a speech from my brother Tom, accepting the Innovation in Hospitality Award. The same brother who once told me that guests don't care about tech, they just want fluffier pillows. I stared at his name on the invite and smiled. Michael, I said, confirm my attendance. He raised an eyebrow. Do you want your name listed as CEO of Sullivan Global? I shook my head.
No.
I'll go as the forgotten daughter. The embarrassment. Let them be comfortable. I stood and walked over to the tall window. The clouds outside were shifting, sunlight breaking through just enough to set the skyline glowing. They'll never see it coming, I said. No, ma'am, Michael replied. They won't. Before he left, he paused at the door. And what do you want them to feel when the truth hits? I turned to him, steady. I want them to feel exactly how I felt when they called me worthless. Then I opened my email and sent the final authorization to my legal team. 1 click. And everything changed. I didn't need revenge. I needed the truth. Louder than their legacy. Stronger than their pride. And on the night of the gala, I'd let it all burn beautifully. The valet barely glanced at me as I stepped out of the Blacktown car, which was perfect. I wasn't dressed to impress. No ball gown. No spotlight. Just a tailored black suit, simple jewelry, and confidence that couldn't be faked. The Henderson Grand shimmered under the night lights, banners waving above the entrance. 35th Annual Henderson Awards Gala, honoring family, tradition, and innovation. I almost laughed. Inside, the ballroom was flooded with gold. Gold tablecloths, gold-rimmed glasses, gold-trimmed chandeliers. All meant to scream legacy. But to me, it looked like the past, desperately holding on. I didn't check in at the front desk. I walked straight in. My name was on the list. Michael had made sure of that. Guests milled about in tuxedos and gowns, clinking glasses, tossing hollow compliments. I recognized more than a few faces, people who had no idea they worked under Sullivan Global umbrellas now. That's the thing about power. It doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits quietly until the whole room belongs to you. Victoria. The voice snapped like a rubber band. I turned. My mother stood there, gripping a champagne flute, lips tight in that familiar smile, sweet on the outside, poisonous underneath. How unexpected to see you here, she said, eyes scanning my outfit like a barcode. It's an open event, I replied. You sent the invite. Tom's big night, she said, waving toward the stage. Try not to embarrass him. Or us. I didn't answer, because just behind her, I saw my father working the room, shaking hands, posing for photos like the proud king of a kingdom that was already sold from under him. I took a flute from a passing tray and smiled. Tonight wasn't about small talk. It was about the clock. And mine was ticking. Miss Sullivan. Michael's voice whispered through the earpiece I wore like a tiny secret. Final share transfer is complete. You are now the majority stakeholder of Henderson Hotels. I took a breath. How's the timing? I asked. Perfect. We'll trigger the display when the speech begins. You'll have the floor in under 60 seconds. I scanned the crowd. They were all here. Board members, executives,
Press.
even the five-star hotel accreditation reps. All of them thinking they were here to clap for Tom and sip overpriced champagne. No idea the ground was about to shift beneath their feet. The lights dimmed. Music rose. Dad walked on stage in a tux that hadn't changed in a decade and tapped the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this year's Henderson Awards Gala, a celebration of family excellence and future innovation. My mother beamed. My brother adjusted his cufflinks. And now, the recipient of this year's Innovation in Hospitality Award, my son, Thomas Henderson. Applause filled the room. Tom strutted toward the stage like he'd just invented luxury travel. He took the mic, chest puffed. Thank you, everyone. Innovation has always been at the heart of our brand. Now, I whispered into my mic. The ballroom screens flickered. Tom froze mid-sentence. The logo behind him, Henderson Hotels, glitched once, twice, then vanished. In its place, a dashboard appeared. Live metrics, real-time reviews, guest satisfaction, down 42%. Cleanliness ratings, 2 stars. Profit margins, red. The room went dead silent.
Gasps.
Whispers. I stood slowly. Excuse me, I said loud enough to carry. Eyes turned. Tom stammered. My father shouted from the front row, "Turn that off." But it was too late. I walked to the base of the stage, heels clicking against marble, and looked straight into the crowd. My name is Victoria Sullivan, I said. And as of 10 minutes ago, I own 51% of Henderson Hotels. Dead silence. My consulting firm, the one you all laughed at? It's now Sullivan Global, the fastest-growing luxury hospitality group in the world. I turned to the screens. What you're seeing is your legacy, rotting from the inside. And tonight, it gets a new start. The room erupted. Flashbulbs. Questions. Stunned faces. But all I heard was my mother's glass hitting the floor. For a moment, no one moved. Just the sound of my mother's champagne glass shattering on the marble floor and my father's voice, low and tight, barely holding itself together. What is this? He barked from the front row. This, I said calmly, is the truth you never cared to look at. The ballroom screens behind me lit up again, this time displaying a side-by-side comparison. On the left, Henderson Hotels' plummeting guest satisfaction scores, delayed renovations, aging systems. On the right, Sullivan Global's soaring numbers, AI-powered upgrades, 5-star ratings across the board. Gasps echoed from different corners of the room. Board members looked at one another. The 5-star association reps whispered among themselves. I saw it in their eyes. Recognition.
Fear.
Respect. Security, my father shouted, his voice cracking. Get her off the stage. I didn't flinch. Michael, I said into my mic. A moment later, 2 men in suits stepped forward, not to remove me, but to hand out thick black folders to every major table. Inside those binders, I told the room, you'll find documents confirming that as of tonight, Sullivan Global owns a majority stake in Henderson Hotels. I turned to face the crowd fully. For those wondering, yes, Sullivan Global was the consulting firm I started after my family shut me out. The same one they mocked for being a little hobby. I paused, letting it hang in the air. And yet here we are. Tom stepped forward, trying to take the mic back. You're bluffing. She's bluffing. This is a stunt. Really? I raised a brow. Then explain this. The screens changed again, this time showing internal financials from Henderson's accounting system. Expense reports, travel costs, and dozens of personal charges under Tom's name. Vacations disguised as business trips. Luxury dinners filed as client meetings. A private spa weekend in the Bahamas. The audience stirred uncomfortably. Those are confidential, Tom snapped, face going pale. Not to the majority shareholder, I replied. And definitely not to the board. I turned back to the audience. For years, I offered them solutions, tech upgrades, green initiatives, modern service models. Every time I was shut down, they said I didn't understand hospitality. My eyes locked on my parents, but what I understood was growth and evolution and listening to what guests actually want. I nodded at the screens again. Everything they dismissed as gimmicks, I built into billion-dollar systems. And tonight, I'm here not for revenge. I looked around the room, but to fix what they couldn't. From the back of the room, one of the board members stood. A man I remembered from old photos. A longtime friend of my grandfather's. Is this true? He asked. You own the majority now. Yes, I said. And my team is already preparing a full transformation plan. You'll receive it within the hour. More whispers. More nods. Tom looked like he might pass out. My mother finally spoke, her voice brittle. Victoria, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly, I said. You kicked me out of your hotel like a stranger. And now I own every one of them. Silence again. Then a few scattered claps from the back. It spread slowly, like rain starting to fall. More people joined in, until the entire ballroom was applauding.
For me.
I took a breath, deep, steady, earned. I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was the one at the center. And I wasn't done. Effective immediately, I said, all Henderson Hotels properties will begin rebranding under the Sullivan Global umbrella. New training, new standards, new leadership. I glanced at Tom. You're welcome to stay in a different department. Something suited to your talents. Maybe snack bar design. He stepped back, speechless. And to the rest of you, I told the crowd, this is your new beginning, if you're ready for it. The applause grew louder, brighter. For once, it didn't feel like noise. It felt like arrival. They called an emergency meeting the next morning. Private. Off-site. Just family, they said. I let them believe they were still in control. The boardroom they chose wasn't even in one of our top-tier properties. The carpet was outdated. The coffee was cold. And the energy? Even colder. My father was already seated when I walked in, hands folded, jaw tight. My mother sat beside him, eyes red-rimmed, pearls still on like armor. Tom slouched in the corner, pale and silent. No one spoke as I sat down across from them. I placed a small folder on the table.
Simple. Black.
Sealed. What is that? My father demanded. Your future, I said. He laughed, but it was hollow. You've embarrassed us, Victoria. You think showing off a few charts in public makes you some kind of businesswoman. I think owning 51% of the company makes me exactly that. My mother leaned forward. You could have talked to us. Privately. Instead of humiliating us in front of the entire industry. I looked at her.
Come.
You did the humiliating part. I just turned on the lights. I slid the folder across the table. Inside is a retention offer. You'll remain minority stakeholders, collect a fixed quarterly dividend, and retain limited access to historical files. But effective immediately, you are removed from all decision-making authority. Tom sat up. You can't just strip us out. I met his eyes. You were never managing. You were coasting. His voice cracked. This company was built by our grandfather. And he would be horrified by what you let it become. I turned the folder toward my father. You've got two choices. Sign the retention contract, or sell your remaining shares to Sullivan Global at market value. You're pushing us out of our own legacy, my father said, voice low. No, I said. You gave it up the second you chose ego over innovation. He went quiet. For once, so did my mother. Only Tom still tried to fight. You can't run this alone, he snapped. You're not family without us. I stood. I'm not running it alone. I have a global executive team, 5 divisions, and 1,000 staff members who believe in what I've built. I looked around the room. You 3 never asked who I'd become. Never once called to ask how my business was doing. You just assumed I was still that girl begging to be included. A pause. I took a deep breath. Well, I'm done begging. I turned to leave. Victoria, my mother said quietly, please, don't do this. I stopped at the door, but didn't look back. I didn't do this, I said. You did. When you made me feel like a stranger in a building I helped dream into existence. Then I walked out. No yelling. No gloating. No revenge speech. Just silence. The kind that says, you don't owe them more than the truth. And that had already spoken loud enough. The conference room was dark. Only the glow of the wall-sized monitors lit the space, casting soft light on the faces around the table. My new board. My team. All eyes were on me. Ready? Michael asked beside me, tablet in hand. I nodded once. Let's begin. He tapped the screen, and instantly, every display came to life. Across continents, time zones, and oceans, the change began. One by one, lobby screens from every Henderson property, Tokyo, Rome, New York, Cape Town, flashed black. Then the transition. The old Henderson Hotel's logo faded. The serif letters, the gold crest, the legacy that had held me back for so long. In its place, a sleek emblem appeared. Sullivan Global.
Modern. Clean.
Unapologetic. We watched the transformation happen in real time. Bellhops unboxed new uniforms. Welcome signs were replaced. Room keycards updated. Each moment captured and streamed live across our internal feed. Every property, every hallway, every digital billboard was now ours.
No, mine.
I leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen as the final location made the switch. Henderson Grand, the hotel that once tossed me out, now proudly bore the name I built from scratch. Transition complete, Michael said. All 117 properties now operating under Sullivan Global. I exhaled slowly. For so long, I'd chased approval. Now all I wanted was evolution. And I'd made it happen. Behind me, someone clapped. Then another. A small ripple of applause from people who had seen the blueprint, followed the protocol, and believed. This wasn't about replacing the past. It was about claiming the future. Michael handed me a printed copy of our internal memo. Subject: Legacy Transition. Immediate brand alignment. From CEO Victoria Sullivan. I skimmed it once and signed the bottom. Then I paused and looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows. Far below, the city kept moving. Unaware. Unbothered. But I knew. We had done something bigger than business. We'd rewritten the rules. And somewhere, in some penthouse suite across town, my parents were watching the same feeds.
They were seeing their logo vanish.
Not because I stole it, but because they let it rot. The Sullivan name didn't rise by chance. It rose by being uninvited, then unshakable. I tapped the intercom. Michael, prepare the press release. And the subject line, he asked. I smiled. Let's keep it simple, I said. Check-in complete.